Hello, folks. So overall, big picture, the Freshman Area Rapid Transit project. So we're creating a fictional bus route. So when you use Google Maps, you're going to select the car option, and you're going to choose some stops for your fictional bus route to travel through. Um, there are careers in uh, city planning and transit and public transit and things like that that involve some similar aspects of this deal. They're obviously much more involved if you've gone through specific training for these things. But we're going to basically be planning a fictional bus route that meets some requirements, and then we're going to study the motion of those things. So the plan, day one, we're going to go through and use Google Maps to create a map of the different stops that we're going to go through. We're going to start at a bus garage and go through our stops and then end at a bus garage. The bus garages, the address for those is provided on this thing, initial departure, bus garage. There are many more than just these three, but these are three that are kind of in our area. Um, I thought I would let you choose. You pick any one of those as your starting bus garage. Then, um, so you're going to have that starting bus garage location, and then you're going to use Google Maps to go from one spot to the next to the next. There's a separate video that discusses how to use Google Maps to do that. Um, then once you have those stops on Google Maps, you're going to take a screenshot of that, and you'll put that screenshot of the map into the slideshow. And that route should have between 5 and 8 stops. They should be at reasonable things that people would like to go to, common workplaces, schools, grocery stores, health care locations. I'm going to ask that you include one of the fictional residential areas. So down here, required stop housing. These are real addresses, so we can punch them into Google Maps. But they're all intended to be businesses, or pardon me, they're all real addresses that have businesses of some sort there. None of them are actually housing, unless I mistyped an address. But every one of them is something, maybe a flower shop, maybe a car repair place, something like that. But they're all some sort of a business. We're going to use them as fictional housing developments. That's just a bus route should include housing. Um, then we should be aware of why these things are reasonable stops. We use Google Maps to get the distance from one stop to the next. It tells us how to do that, or it shows us that information. The other video shows us how to do that stuff. It also tells us how to get the time from one thing to the next. And we'll use a Google Sheet to gather all of that data and kind of organize it into a table, and then also create a graph for later in the project. That's day one stuff. So um, that's for the first chunk. That's the first chunk. Day two day two will be our day to go through and kind of do the calculations. We'll have from our Google Maps data from day one, we'll have the distance between each stop, we'll have the time between each stop. And so day two is going to be using that data to calculate the average velocity from stop one to stop two, and then the average velocity from stop two to stop three. So day two will simply be using that data to calculate the velocity. Um, and then day three, oops, day three, we're going to go through and from the uh, day three, we'll go through and from the data that we've got, the calculations that we've got here from day two, and from the map and data table that we have on day one, day three, we're going to use those things to make sure we have two graphs. One graph will be the position time graph that is pretty much automatically generated in our Google Sheet. And graph two will be a velocity versus time graph that's going to take a little bit more time to create. So we'll go through and take a look at that stuff. So all of these things will go into a slideshow like this. Now, on day one, I'm going to give you an assignment that is just these yellow slides. So day one, you'll have a 4-slide assignment where you're just going to include an image of the map, the route data table, um, and this is just information to make sure that you have for day one. Um, Day two, after you already have on day one the data for the map, for the route, for all of the stops you're going to make, then on day two you already have that data. So day two, now we're going to go through and we'll have just these blue slides. So day two, we'll go through. This first slide is just like a how-to sort of a thing. Day two, you're going to go through and you're just going to try to go through and do these calculations, show the data. There's the general equation. I'm going to plug in my numbers in units of measure. I'm going to state my answer with units of measure. Oops, that S is way the bejesus off. There, meters per second. Day two, you're just going to go through and enter your data into these things and go through and do those calculations for the stuff from stop 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. We're going to do that for each one of those. Then day three, you've already got your map. You've already got the data for each stop. You've already got now the velocity that for the bus at each transition from one spot to the next. So now day three, we're just going to go through and insert our graphs. So the position versus time graph, you should be able to copy just um, straight out from the Google sheet where you entered all of your stuff on day one. Um, the velocity graph is going to take a little bit more time. The velocity graph, once you figure out what the velocities are, you're going to have to adjust the scale on this, like it says here, by editing the values on the left. We want all of these to be nice and uniform. Oh, that shouldn't be 1010, that should be 1012. So we would go from 0 meters per second to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. If your bus ends up going faster than 12, or if it only ends up going like 4 meters per second, well, we need to adjust things so that our graph takes up as much space as possible.